Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm so glad that you all popped in for today's video. Today we're going to be talking about this potential that Nikki Haley, the former ambassador to the United Nations under the Trump administration, as well as the former governor of South Carolina, up until she took that position as the ambassador to the United Nations, is looking at a 2024 White House bid. This is on the Hill's website, and we're going to talk about this and boil it down to could she win the nomination if she did, and she was to face Biden or another typical Democrat. What would that race look like? And we're going to just discuss this on all measures. So I've seen around TikTok and other social media platforms that Nikki Haley's been hinting around this for probably the last couple of months. She said before that she would run if there's a place for her. And then in her most recent interview, saying sometimes it takes a woman, and this was at this wasn't an interview. I'm sorry about that, but it was at an event that she spoke at, and she pretty much boiled it down to that sometimes it takes a woman in her standpoint, and that she really this is the most hinting around at the presidential bid that Nikki Haley has given. And today we're going to just talk about, could she win this nomination if she decides to run? Is she actually running, or is this just a test? What are the next steps that we're looking at for Nikki Haley as far as her plans beyond 2022? But she's said on multiple times that she would run if there's a place for her, right? Before, about a year ago, she was saying that she wouldn't run if Trump ran, but ultimately that has shifted recently to pretty much saying if there's a place for her. So what does that place mean? Does that mean if Trump doesn't run that she's going to run? And what does this mean for Nikki Haley going forward? I also want to point out that Nikki Haley has never lost a race in her political history. And if she was to run, that I fully think that she fully thinks she could win if she ran. So that's another thing to point out, is that Nikki Haley has never lost a race before. She said that in one interview as well, that she had never lost a race and she wouldn't start now. But we're going to talk about this and boil it down to what this means going into the 2024 presidential race. I mean, we've seen in recent months that we've seen multiple people hinting around at a possible White House bid. And we're going to talk about these polling numbers with Donald Trump and then without Donald Trump and what this means. You see, with Donald Trump, these polls suggest, Trump is ahead, but, DeSantis is shortly behind him. And then, we have Mike Pence and then Nikki Haley. But, at this point, Nikki Haley is down somewhat in polls, but could she ultimately win this nomination? And then let's also look at what it would look like if Trump didn't run. We see Ron DeSantis, we see Mike Pence, and then Nikki Haley even. Donald Trump Jr. has been mentioned, but ultimately I really do not think Donald Trump Jr. would be interested in a White House bid. Ultimately, Nikki Haley isn't doing too well in recent polls for the nomination. This doesn't necessarily mean she couldn't win, but, it would take a few people maybe dropping out or her really campaigning really hard and getting extra support. Nikki Haley is one of those candidates who in recent history has drifted from Trump, but also not fully done away with him. She knows that she has to have that Trump-based support to win the nomination and to win the presidency, but she doesn't want to fully connect herself. She's doing kind of like Glenn Youngkin did in that Virginia gubernatorial election, where he appreciated the support from Donald Trump, but he did keep him at bay. He did not want him in the state of Virginia because he knew it would lose him votes. And that's what I kind of look at Nikki Haley as someone who is, waiting it out, but also saying, I'm willing to run. But what's this going to mean if she does run or if she doesn't run, right? Ron DeSantis is also one of those people that many people think that he could beat President Trump. No exception here. I believe that he could as well in that nomination. I think it would take time, but I do think that he could beat him. And I mean, honestly, Trump has hinted around that he plans to run, but we fully don't know with Trump, right? We don't know if he will run or if he won't. We won't officially know that until he announces his candidacy, if he does that. And that could be months to even almost a year from now for him to do that. But will he run? Will he not run? That's up for debate in and of itself. The next question would be, is Ron DeSantis going to run? Because if Ron DeSantis doesn't run and Donald Trump doesn't run, then that leaves an open door for people like Mike Pence and Nikki Haley. Personally, I believe Nikki Haley would perform better than Mike Pence. I think a lot of Republicans view Mike Pence as someone who isn't someone who's tied to the party anymore, right? As a traitor in some cases on those far-right groups of the Republican Party. Far-right Trump supporters, I believe, view Mike Pence as a traitor to the party. And, it's simply, it goes down to these numbers. And, I don't fully trust polling. I never will fully trust polling. But another thing that we have to keep in mind is that even with these poll numbers, we still have another 2 years to go through until we officially know who that nominee will be. Because about 2 years from now, we should know who that Republican nominee will be for president, and even the Democratic nominee, because we're not 100% sure that that Joe Biden will run for re-election, even though he has stated that before. Let's take a look at some of these states on Jackson Jude's website. This is an amazing website. I'd highly recommend it. But let's look at some of these numbers that Nikki Haley would need to flip. But let me first go ahead and characterize some of these states that we could consider safe Democrat and safe Republican, no matter who the candidate would be. I think that some of these races are going to be, very competitive, just depending on fully who the candidate is, right? Who would Nikki Haley pick as a running mate if she was to run and win the nomination? It's questions like that we have to ask ourselves at this point. And I'm sorry about the Discord notifications. If you hear those in the background every once in a while, I apologize. But, it's questions like that who would she pick and how well would they perform and give her extra support? I'm even going to classify some of these states as safe Republican and safe Democrat states that you wouldn't exactly expect. But I think that majority of people know the way that they're going to go. But in this case, I think these states are majority going to be this way, right? I think we'll see Nevada stay blue, even though that Senate race in Nevada is looking way more competitive than many people may have thought. And I do personally believe that the Republican has a high chance. Not 100% sure yet. We'll have to keep following those polling numbers and things up until the midterms. But at this point, this is a map that we're looking at. Let's look at these states, these three states specifically. And I've talked about these in other videos, but these three states specifically. And how well could Nikki Haley perform in them if she is the nominee in 2024? Wisconsin, Biden wins by 0.6%. Arizona, Biden wins by 0.3%. And Georgia, Biden wins by 0.2%. These three states alone would give, with Florida obviously, would give almost a guaranteed win to Nikki Haley. Give her North Carolina, she's got the presidency. And North Carolina is one of those states that I believe the Democrats will focus on again, but I think Nikki Haley would be able to perform very well. Considering she's from South Carolina, she's going to campaign in that southern region, but she's also going to focus on the Rust Belt, winning Wisconsin. She's also going to focus on Arizona, one of those states that, Trump wasn't able to do quite as well in 2020, but I think she's going to focus on it, and I think she could win it. Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, North Carolina. These four states alone could give Nikki Haley the presidency. Give Biden, or whoever the nominee is, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire. Nikki Haley still wins. It boils down to who these candidates are, how well are they going to perform. Is Trump going to perform better than Nikki Haley? Is Nikki Haley going to perform better than Mike Pence? Is Nikki Haley going to perform better than Ron DeSantis? How is this going to play out? Nikki Haley is much more of a, not moderate Republican, but much more of the stays semi away from Trump. And we'll have to see if that could bring a win to the Republican Party. If she's the nominee, could she win Pennsylvania like Trump did in 2016? Could she win Michigan like Trump did in 2016? What states are we going to be looking at going into this that Nikki Haley could or could not win, right? That's one thing specifically. Let's go ahead and put these states back up as toss-ups really fast for the sake of this video, though. And let's look at some of these other states. North Carolina, Trump wins by 1.3%. You know, Trump did well in states, very well in states. We have North Carolina and Florida are the only two states that were, I believe, the lowest number, percentage number that Trump won by. And that's 1.3% North Carolina, 3.4% in Florida. Still did very well in these two states. He didn't have any of these tilt margins like Biden does. The 0.3% in Arizona, the 0.2% in Georgia, the 0.6% in Wisconsin. You know, he did well in Michigan, winning it by 2.8%, and did well in Pennsylvania, winning it by 1.2%. And I think one thing that we can almost guarantee, not fully, but could hint around, is that a Democrat's still going to win Michigan. The Democrats are still going to focus on this Rust Belt region. But Nikki Haley could still win Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina and wins the presidency. Give her Pennsylvania as well. She's got an extra margin. A lean margin. You know, she could lose Arizona. She could lose Georgia. She still wins. Give her Michigan, give the Democrat Michigan, Georgia, New Hampshire. Nikki Haley still wins, right? Give the Democrat Arizona, but give Nikki Haley Georgia, but give the Democrat Arizona, Michigan, New Hampshire. The Democrats still lose. Nikki Haley still wins, right? These are the margins that we're looking at. The Democrats are in a much worse spot than they were going into 2020. Polling even suggests that. Polling suggests that Donald Trump is doing well, much less someone who isn't as extreme as Donald Trump. You know, many people purposely voted against Donald Trump because they didn't like him. So what does that mean going into the 2022 midterms and going into this 2024 presidential race? I think the biggest thing that Nikki Haley is going to focus on is how well do candidates do in the midterms. You know, we saw Nikki Haley, who is a South Carolina native. You know, she was the governor of South Carolina. She grew up in South Carolina. She is someone who did fantastic when she was governor, right? She's very popular across the United States. And she's grew herself to this board where she has started endorsing people and Trump endorses the opposite person. And we've seen candidates that Nikki Haley has endorsed who have won the primary. And it shows that Nikki Haley still does have this grasp hold on the party to Donald Trump. So let's talk a little bit more about what this means going into 2024. You know, I mean, Nikki Haley's been hinting around at this for a couple of months now. And if she decides to run, how many people are going to support her? Would Mike Pence actually run? You know, these people that we see on here, are they actually going to run? Are they not going to run? You know, that's the question up for debate at this point. You know, take Ron DeSantis off the list. Take Donald Trump off the list. Nikki Haley and Mike Pence are the two other biggest candidates on this list. Would Mike Pence or Nikki Haley perform better? I personally believe Nikki Haley would. But polls suggest differently. We also have time to go through. Is Donald Trump going to be able to hold this base that he has for the next 2 years? Well, maybe year and a half even. Will Donald Trump be able to hold that up until the primary? He's been losing his base. I mean, if we look back even, you know, just like May of 2021, Trump had a 65% in polling numbers to many other Republicans. You would think that he was running for re-election as a consecutive president, but he's not. He's running for a non-consecutive term. You know, he was doing very well. But in recent time, we've seen Donald Trump start to fall in poll numbers. Is he losing this grasp on the Republican Party? That's the question that we're going to ask ourselves, especially going into these midterms and then even following that. Because following the midterms is when people are going to start announcing their candidacy. Then we're really going to start looking at these polls more specifically. I appreciate you all for watching. I'm going to give more details on Nikki Haley, more predictions regarding Nikki Haley, but my personal prediction is Nikki Haley's probably going to run. I mean, looking at right now, she's looking poised to run, and it makes sense for her to do so. I again appreciate you all for watching. Make sure to go check out some other videos that I have linked below, in the cards. But I really appreciate you all watching. I appreciate your support, and make sure to comment down below your thoughts. You all have been doing excellent at that. I really appreciate it. I love reading through and getting other people's opinions on what they think is going to happen. But I really appreciate you all watching this video. Again, if you're interested in helping out in the American Elections team, visit us on Instagram, DM us. We'll get you involved. If you're interested in that, make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, where we are trying to keep you all updated on all kinds of news like this. I really, really do appreciate it. And until the next video, I'll see you later.